Welcome to The Edge. I'm joined by Steve Bittenbender, my colleague at the Gambling.com group. Steve covers our state sites and also from his home in Kentucky, also covers the horse racing industry. Steve, if you would, I want to talk a little bit about at the end about what's happening with the industry and where it goes from post Triple Crown. But there's a huge race on Saturday, the last leg of the Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes being run at Saratoga as work is being done on the track on Long Island. A little bit shorter race this year. However, very exciting race. 10 horses that won't have a Triple Crown winner, but could have a two-peat winner. We've got the Kentucky Derby winner, Mystic Dan. We've got the Preakness winner, Seize the Gray. Got some great horses in the field of 10. Sierra Leone lost by nose in the Derby. You've liked Dornoch in the past. Dornoch is in this race. And the fastest horse in the race, Mindframe. So really impressive field. A lot of fun for fans. A lot of fun for bettors. A lot of choices for bettors. A lot of options going into Saturday. Going into that, Steve, when you look at that field and you look at where we've come, Sierra Leone, I know, has had some rest. So you've got all kind of dynamics at play here. When you look at that field, as a bettor, where would you go with your money, with your picks in the Belmont?
Well, you kind of nailed it, in your description there, Larry. This is a wide open race. 10 horses, but you got some very high quality horses in this race. So, it's a handicapper's delight, really, because there's a good chance you're going to find value here. You go back to the Preakness 3 weeks ago, and the knock on Mystic Dan and Seize the Gray were that they were coming off just 2 weeks rest at Churchill Downs. Mystic Dan, of course, in the Derby, Seize the Gray in the Pat Day Stakes before that. But they were clearly the two best horses at Pimlico in that race. So, they're coming off 3 weeks rest this time. They're going to get some, horses with longer rest, but, you can't, I don't think you can just throw them out because they're coming off short rest. As you mentioned, I really love Dornoch heading into the Kentucky Derby. I do believe his inside post in the Derby hurt him to the point where he finished 10th in the race. He's got a better post here for the Belmont, so I think he is likely to be in contention there. Sierra Leone, it's interesting. You have the Derby winner in this race, you have the Preakness winner in this race, but neither one of them is the morning line favorite. You've got Sierra Leone, who probably did run a better race than Mystic Dan in the Derby as the morning line favorite. And you look at his record. He's never finished worse than second in any of his races. So you expect him to be right up there at the finish. And then, as you mentioned, you've got Mindframe. I love Mindframe's connections. Obviously, you got Mike Repole in Todd Pletcher. Obviously, they're the kings of New York when it comes to racing, and you can't not look at him. He's won his 2 races by more than 20 lengths, but this is going to be his first big challenge, and he's going to be on the outside to some of these horses, and I'm not sure I would look at him necessarily to win. I might look at him for exotics, but at the same time, it's a New York race. He's probably going to be overbet, in my opinion. So you're going to lose some of the value there, I think. It's not to say that he can't win the race. I think he can. But I don't think you're going to get the value for him that he's really worth. Seize the Gray, again, I go back to the fact that yes, he's only coming off 3 weeks rest. Lucas didn't run him in the Derby because he didn't think he was a 1.25 mile horse. He ran him in the Pat Day Mile and did well there. I'm not sure if the how much the track conditions at Pimlico, it was a muddy track at Baltimore 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure how much that aided his run. Now we're looking at weather forecasts for Saratoga. Looks like it, could be rainy at the spa this weekend. So if it's an off track, I might lean more toward him, even though it's probably a longer distance than what he favors. But it's gonna be a wide open race, and then I'll throw in another horse out there. I know I've thrown in half the field. I talked about half the field already, but Antiquarian, had a nice run there in the Peter Pan. Looks like he's got the staying power for a mile and a quarter. He could be a horse that kind of comes up and surprises people here in the Belmont.
Yeah, it's interesting, and those are all. That's what makes it such an exciting race on Saturday because there's such a fantastic field. And you mentioned Dornock, and we talked about Dornock before the Derby, and as you mentioned, he ran into a little bit of trouble. But I think Sierra Leone's two losses by a nose at the Derby, and if it's gone a little bit longer, might have won the Derby. And then Dornock
Yeah.
actually beat Sierra Leone at the end of last year. So
Right.
when you're walking up to the window, Steve, or firing
Mhm.
up your phone to place a bet, to put real money on the line because it is such a tough call. And you got real. I'm looking at the odds over here off screen, but you've got
Mhm.
some really good odds options too if you want to take a little bit of a long shot, like on the door knock last I saw, 15-1. Uh,
Mhm.
when you fire up the app or walk up to the ticket counter, uh, where are you going to go? Right. I mean, you
Well,
a little bit before the race, and then things change depending on weather and so forth. But if you had to fire up the
yeah.
app right now, where would you go?
I- Well, I will dance with the date that brought me. I've been on door knock, through the prep season. I know he didn't run well in the bluegrass. Yeah, as I say, he had the inside post in the Derby, which I think hurt him. But as you mentioned, he did beat Sierra Leone. I think he's a sound horse, and he is coming off 5 weeks rest. But I realize Mystic Dan and Caesar Gray are probably going to be up there too. But you know, I think with the value that he's going to have, I think he's probably going to be a double digit odds horse. I would really look toward him and probably Antiquarian too. I think those are going to be two really high value horses. So that's where that's the direction I would lean right now. Probably Dornock first, and then if Antiquarian is still double digit odds, I'd probably look to lay a little bit on him too.
Yeah, those sound like great choices. And then you've got again the two-peat opportunities with Seize the Gray and Mystic Dan. Mystic Dan ran well in the Preakness.
Mhm.
So
Oh, very well. They were he and Caesar Gray were the two best horses in that race.
almost
Even
could have won it. Yeah.
right, yeah, and coming off just 2 weeks rest there. So I mean, you can't discount them just because they're coming off 3 weeks rest, and some of these other horses have rested for longer. That's why I say it's going to be a wide open race. It's a handicapper's delight, and this is a race where if you really love exotic betting, if you want to put down some, not just exactas but tries and supers, this is a race that could really reward you for something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I really, as always, I appreciate your insight on racing and what
Mhm.
the looks like. But yeah, like you say, this could be a race to take a shot on somebody to give you a little bit better of opportunity to make a little bit of money. Let me
Mhm.
transition. Triple Crown's up after Saturday. A
Mhm.
lot of interest with fans and bettors, casual fans and bettors, through the Triple Crown. It re-inspires interest in racing into the summer. But then we get into the rest of the racing season where some fans and some bettors fall off a little bit, and then controversies and inevitably arise. You'll have horse deaths and things like that that batter the industry. What does the industry do, Steve, going forward to maintain fan and better interest beyond the Triple Crown and to sort of polish and burnish the image into post Triple Crown season?
Well, the one thing I think that really kind of gets forgotten is that there's a really good summer series that starts up. A lot of interest dies down right after the Belmont, but if you look, just a little over a month later, you've got the Haskell Stakes in Monmouth, and then in August you've got the Travers Stakes at Saratoga, which this very much today's or this weekend's Belmont could very easily be a preview for that race. So there's some very good races on the summer schedule. There's also obviously some older horses that are going to be are still going to be running. You take a look at this Belmont at Saratoga card. A lot of stakes races in there. There's going to be quite a few older horses running, and you look at I'm taking a look here at what race is it here? Excuse me, 1 second. Look at the Metropolitan. You got some nice horses there. 5-year-old horse White Barrio, who ran in the Derby a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He's the favorite there. You got Bob Baffert and National Treasure in that race. So it's only a 6-horse field, but there's some very good horses in that race. And these are horses that are going to compete over the summer. They're going to be competing either in New York or in California for prep races and getting ready potentially for the Breeders' Cup Classic in November. So you're going to be able to see a horse like White Barrio, and he may end up facing some of these 3-year-olds that you're seeing in the Belmont in a Breeders' Cup race. So there's still plenty of good horses out there. A lot of them obviously do get retired early, especially if they win the Triple Crown or win a couple of stakes races. The owners look to cash in on the breeding rights, and I can't blame them. This is an investment for them, and they're looking to make as much money as they can. You would hope though that you would get a horse that could still run as a 4-year-old and keep some of that name and carry it over into the next year. But it's very, very rare that happens nowadays. I mean, Rich Strike did it, but Rich Strike was not your typical prototype Derby winner. He was a long shot and never really recaptured that glory that he had in the Derby a couple of years ago. But there's still I would urge people not to tune out on racing after the Belmont. Fox and NBC will still be showing races on some weekends. FanDuel Racing obviously will show racing over the weekends. There's going to be plenty of stakes races. Stephen Foster is coming up later this month at Churchill Downs. That's how they're going to end the summer meet there. So there's going to be a lot of good horses out there, and a lot of talented horses that aren't going to have the cachet of a Derby winner or even a Derby runner. But there's a chance for you to watch some of those horses, see the talent there, and maybe that will pique your interest, and you can watch those horses. If you bet on a horse, you can especially through Twin Spires, you can mark that horse down, and you'll get what's called stable alerts, so that when that horse races the next time, or he's in a futures field or whatever, you can get an alert saying, hey, this horse that you bet on, in the Belmont or in the Metropolitan, is running now in this race this weekend. So, there's ways you can stay in touch with racing. You don't have to, keep pouring over the racing form or Equibase. The information can come to you if you want it. And, I would suggest people do that and, find, multiple horses that they like, and watch them throughout the summer, and hopefully make a little bit of money, and, and also maybe start looking at a horse they can watch for next year's Derby prep season too.
That's a great point. I mean, you look at the apps and the availability of information now, Steve. A lot like you say, you can go to an app and get alerts, but also the research that you can do. You can go to an app and not just bet on U.S. races. You can bet
Right.
global races, and the research is so easily obtained and readily
Mm-hmm.
available. It used to be a lot more difficult in the pre-technology age to bet on
Right.
something outside of you could go to a race book in Las Vegas and there'd be a racing
Mm-hmm.
form there, somebody left there or something, but it would be a little more difficult to research beyond a race you
Yeah.
had specific interest in. But now, man, the research capabilities are at your fingertips and it's pretty efficient.
Exactly. And, I would throw in Equibase there too, because, you can go to Equibase, look at the field for a stakes race, click on the horse, and you can pull up all their past performances. And the nice thing about it is those charts are free access. All you need is a PDF reader, and I think in this day and age, everyone has a PDF reader either on their laptop or on their mobile device. You can read the charts that way. And I know for beginners, it's probably not the easiest thing. A chart's not the easiest thing, but you can obviously Google it. Google how to read a chart. You can also, it's kind of intuitive as well. You can kind of see that, if a horse was third with, 3 lengths back at a mile, and then, by the time he hits the stretch, he's leading by a length. That tells you the kind of horse that you have there. So, I would definitely encourage people to use Equibase to do research and find horses that you like and that you can watch and wager on through the summer and fall and hopefully into the Breeders' Cup Series.
Yeah, and don't be intimidated. I mean, again, back in the day, people who weren't knowledgeable about different kind of bets. You mentioned some of the
Yeah.
exotics.
Mhm.
The website. I'm thinking about Churchill Downs website, the Oaklawn
Mhm.
website. They don't talk down to you. They will explain what these different bets are and how they work
Yeah.
and for
Mhm.
beginners. I mean, they break it down in real simple terms, make it a lot of fun.
Exactly. I mean, I remember when, you know, growing up as a kid going to Churchill Downs, the programs back then were, basically palm size. You had the number, the horse name, the jockey and the trainer, and that was it. Yeah, obviously you did have a daily racing form but you had to buy that back then. So a lot of times you were just looking at it as, okay, I like this horse's name, or this horse's color, or myself. I was always a jockey person myself. I bet on Pat Day every day at Churchill Downs when I went there. But it's as you said, the information is readily available now. It's easy to obtain, and it's out there, and I think it's a great sport. And I think if people give it a chance, not just with the Triple Crown races, but if you give it a chance, there's a lot of exciting races out there, and the quantity of races too, because not only are we racing at Saratoga this weekend, there's races at Churchill Downs, races in Florida, races in California, racing across the country. So it's one of those things where there's a race going on every 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not like the old days where you see the horses race and then you got to wait 30 minutes for the next race to take place. There's constant action going here, and it's a chance to really kind of get engaged and become an enthusiast about horse racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Steve, as always. I really appreciate you giving some insight into not only this weekend's race, the Belmont Stakes, but also into different ways to figure out how to get engaged with the horse racing industry and with horse racing. So, Steve, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining me today.
Anytime, Larry. Thanks a lot.
I'm Larry Henry. Thanks for joining us on The Edge.